right, we gotta
All
do
right,
this again.
go back to the test.
Won't you be my neighbor?
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Is that you should take off your Stoney's liquor hoodie and replace it with
Won't
like
you
a
be
Reds
my
clip.
liquor?
Won't you be my liquor? 2020, the resurgence of the corner liquor store. That's about our theme for this year, I think. So you feel like you got your audio going, so we're now live. Luckily for us, we can go back before we post it on YouTube and make any edits necessary.
I gotta keep that stuff in there. That's the good stuff. That's the playful
The
banter.
B-roll, the B-roll goes down, like into a different folder, and we bring those out periodically. Like I'll be having a bad day, and JMac will know just when to send me a clip of myself sounding really stupid. It humbles me and brings me back to earth of like, hey, I could be that guy in that Twitch cast saying that stupid thing right then.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. That's going to have to happen less due to our announcement with EEG and Chris, my partner and co-founder, our CTO, is worried that I'm going to go to jail because I'm so open and honest about everything, and whether or not that's going to come back to bite us in the world of publicly traded companies.
I don't know. I think maybe in the past, I think you've learned your lesson. You're not nearly as bad as you used to be.
You're so kind, and you're such a liar. It's not. I mean, I added, yeah. Anyway, thanks for setting this all up, JMac. I've missed you. It's been a hot minute since our last town hall. It's been a weird, let's say 6 months, maybe. I think since our last one was probably March or April, right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
So a lot of stuff has gone on, and basically we're coming on today after our announcement Monday to answer some questions that have come up that we've been sent and emailed, and people have asked in chat about what this means for customers and what this means for ggCircuit and things, but also to just kind of refocus and recenter. We're now allowed to talk about it. I mean, Monday's announcement, for those of you that maybe missed it, we announced the deal on Monday that we're merging with and being acquired by a parent company called Esports Entertainment Group. We've been working on this for a while, so I apologize if a lot of it seems old news to us, but because they're publicly traded and you have to go through a bunch of different steps along the way, we weren't allowed to talk about it until it was publicly released on Monday. But now the greatest part is, you'll appreciate this, JMac. Jamelin called yesterday and she said, hey, congratulations, I saw the news. Can I finally own part of ggCircuit? And I said, absolutely. You can now go buy Esports Entertainment Group stock. And she sent me a notice later that I forget the number, they now own 20 shares or something. She bought a little bit of Esports Entertainment stock, who's the company that we're merging with. So I got probably about 200 messages, emails, texts, phone calls from folks the last couple of days. So if I haven't gotten back to you yet, I apologize. But thanks for all the congratulations. It is a big positive news for not only us and validating all of our hard work over the years, but also for our staff and for the rest of our company and for all of our customers as well, as we'll kind of go through some of the different details of what's going to happen on the other side of this. So let's take it back a little bit, catch everybody up on what's been going on. I just wanted to share my screen, JMac. Hopefully this will work. We tested it beforehand, but we always test things and then they don't work. So I wanted to share this graph with everybody else. We may have shared this on a previous call, but let me know if it comes up for you, JMac. Does that look all right? Okay. So if everybody's familiar with this, I may have brought this up on a call before, but this is we call it the heartbeat of LAN centers. We have a lot of different customers at ggCircuit. We have enterprise customers, we have retail stores, and then we have LAN centers. So this is the unique users at LAN centers across our network all around the world. And you can see, we just started this to kind of explain this year. This is 2020 in a nutshell, if I've ever seen it. And the story's not over yet, folks. But so we started the year at a very healthy heartbeat. That heartbeat is weekday customers, weekend customers, weekday customers, weekend customers. So you see that steady heartbeat through the end of last year and the first of this year. And then, of course, good old COVID-19 came upon us and the world shut down. to about 98% of LAN centers were closed, other than Andreas and our buddies in Sweden and a few countries that tried to stay open through it. It was pretty much 100% closure for a lot of us in the industry. The key is that the heartbeat died and the overall plummeted. And you can see we went through a couple months. All of us know this and lived it through April and May. And then we started to ramp back up in June and July. So you'll notice as that ramps back up in June and July, the heartbeat didn't really return very quickly. I mean, there's a little bit of a heartbeat there, but then obviously the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks or so, the heartbeat's been pretty consistent. Now, this is positive and a little bit hesitant or neutral to look at as you see that curve coming back. And this is some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, but the world started to open back up again with a lot of optimism, and things started to open up quickly. And now it is kind of plateaued, let's say. And this is not unique, I don't think, to LAN centers. I think this is the world as we know it. I bet restaurateurs could show us this. I bet bowling alleys know this. I mean, schools are going through this same thing. Even our local schools in Indiana, like literally a week ago, everybody was finally back to full-time school. And then within 1 week, they've started shutting schools down again or going back to a slower schedule as the virus numbers continue to increase in the colder weather. So we're not on the other side of this yet, but I do want to say, hey, I love seeing the heartbeat come back. I do know that players are going back, and the heartbeat indicates entertainment as I know it. You know, being in work and school during the week and going out to these LAN centers on the weekend shows me that entertainment's speeding back up a little bit. But I wanted to share this as kind of some of the, I got to turn this back off again or else I'm going to get distracted. Some of the different topics we're going to cover today, I want to keep that in perspective of that's where the LAN center industry story is so far this year. Luckily for us at ggCircuit and our fantastic staff throughout the world, we have folks that work for us all over the world. We hunkered down at the beginning of the pandemic and started working on some different things that we thought would not only help LAN centers, but specifically, like there was opportunities for us with other enterprise partners to keep our staff employed. We had the choice of laying off a lot of folks while the country, and you could see when that line dipped way down to zero, there was no work to do. We didn't have a lot of support to do. The sales team didn't have anybody to answer the phone or to call and to sell new product to. And some of that still is slow today, but we continue to stay busy and we continue to keep our staff employed on other projects outside of that graph that represents the LAN center market. Now, we get to the fall this year. We've done pretty well with our enterprise customers. We've got some of the LAN centers opening again. A lot of enterprise customers are looking at how they can use the at-home product in different scenarios. And then we have another whole chunk of us that are part of the school industry. So a lot of universities that have dedicated arenas run our software. And that's, again, very similar to that same graph. Not a lot of arenas have opened. We know a lot of the big ones are still closed because a lot of their students are not back on campus. And even if their students are back on campus, they're limiting their students' activities. And I know we're not going to limit, I said this to somebody the other day, if you remember back to the time when we were all teenagers and young adults and we were invincible, I know we're not going to be able to control these kids, but the schools know that, hey, if the LAN center and the arena on campus is not open, then at least they're not encouraging people to gather together in that form on the school property. So those are also kind of slow to get started back. We know we've got 3 to 6 more months of waiting for a vaccine, waiting for us to get a handle on this virus. You know, in the US, for those of us centers that are in the US, we have a lot of other stuff compounding all of that with the election this year and things. So what a year. We're going to look back on 2020 as a phenomenal year, not just for our industry, but for all businesses, for all way of life. Maybe things are going to change, I think, on the other side of this pandemic. Now, to give everybody a background on ggCircuit, we're a privately held company. We will not be privately held anymore, obviously, once the merger and acquisition with Esports Entertainment Group is finished. But if we've never shared this openly with everybody else, I think it's been assumed, or we've mentioned it on some of these calls, but we grew this as a bootstrap business for many years until 2018, and we took on private investment that year. And again, it's public knowledge now as part of the deal that we have. But Helix Esports, as they were getting ready to build their arenas out, invested in our company in 2018. Then in 2019, they invested again. And so in 18 and 19, our focus with that investment was to get ggLeap to version 1.0. Then in 2019, it was really to get ggRock off the ground and get it into early access, as well as continue to build on top of ggLeap. And we had plans for this year, and everyone will laugh because we're all sitting today as business owners in a world where we all realize that we can have the best plans, but sometimes things are out of our grasp. But our plan this year was to do another round of private investment or a bigger investment round or merger with another company. Now, it was not a good time to do this for a lot of companies because of the pandemic, especially like as eBash is sitting here today. This is the first time in 16 years that eBash has been open that we've ever adjusted our opening hours, because it just doesn't make sense to be open during the week right now. Not only are we trying to remain at half capacity to fulfill the governor's social distancing orders in Indiana, and of course we want to be compliant and a good neighbor and steward of the kids and the young adults that come and play at our center. But we've made this decision now to say, listen, we're only seeing a dozen to 20 customers a day during the week, and it wasn't paying the bills, but it also didn't make sense to put our staff and employees in here to be in and around other people during that time for that few amount of people. So we just made the decision to be open Friday, Saturday, Sunday right now. We could change that as we get into the holiday season, but we're also waiting, as everybody else is, to see how the cold weather affects everything else and to see how the schools respond and what's the world's going to kind of respond to this change in habits as the Northern Hemisphere comes back inside for the winter. So this year, we actually have talked with a couple different companies about a bigger investment in merger, and we ended up settling in on Esports Entertainment Group specifically because of a few things. Number one, they're at a place where they've already raised money, got uplisted to NASDAQ, already done their first, again, as Grant shared with us on a company call yesterday, they've been through a long road the past couple of years, getting to the point where they're at on NASDAQ, raising the money from the public market, getting listed on NASDAQ from the private markets they were on before. So they've had a couple steps along the way that were interesting for us because we didn't want to risk the public market in any other ways other than somebody who was a little bit established. So Esports Entertainment Group had already been established, had already raised the money. They were looking for properties in the esports realm to go along with their three-pillar strategy. Now, I've had to answer this question for a lot of folks, and I'll use my parents as one of them yesterday. So I hadn't told my parents anything, not because my parents were going to blab to the world and people were going to get secret information to go buy stock before the announcement was made. But I also wasn't sure how to approach that with my father, who's a retired minister, and my mother, again, like I didn't know how they would feel about this. And they want to know how I felt about it, because I also feel strongly about a lot of things in life. And I'm not a betting, gambling man. However, we do a lot of work for casinos, and we do a lot of work with esports setups inside of casinos. Some of their properties in their pillars, so they have a sports wagering system, and they're working on esports wagering as the bridge between esports entertainment and sports wagering. So we fall into that esports entertainment category. In that esports entertainment category, we're a fully owned subsidiary. We will continue to operate the same way we've always operated. We're still ggCircuit LLC. We're still the same folks working with it. There will be no subtractions from our team. There will be additions to our team as part of this merger and acquisition moving into next year, as we scale up again, just like we would with any other investment along the way, so that we scale up our team to focus on other products in and around our world that we live in today. They will then, obviously, the other pillars will also have funding to use our operating system in build outs in and around wagering in the casinos. I like this because in America, it's very well regulated. A lot of people think that's a negative in the wagering world, but I like it in the US so that we make sure everybody's 18 years or older, they're all adults. And as a sportsman, I want to make sure everything's as equal and level as possible. So I can't imagine a day where everything is so secure you can do wagering at home. Wagering will happen in venues, and venues will have licenses from the states that they're in, at least in America. So I like that part of this whole scenario, is that it's very well regulated, that our operating system can help contribute to controlling that and making sure that it's legal, making sure that it's 18 years and older, as we have a sign-in system that then is tied to real IDs in these casinos. But honestly, like, as part of ggCircuit's world, that's going to be a small piece of the pie for us. And it's an additional piece of the pie that we'll add support in, that has nothing to do with our day-to-day business of everything we've done the past 16 years that we've all been in this industry. So what ggCircuit will be doing, in addition to supporting those pillars, is that we will continue to build out, and we'll be able to expand our staff to dedicate teams to each of our products. So I don't know, some of you folks out there listening, especially in the LAN Center world, probably have met a lot of our team members along the way, a lot of our developers. We have a great development team. Chris and Andy and Ross and Neveroff have assembled a world-class group of developers, QA folks, JMAC and team. We have really, really great support staff. The nice thing is that we'll be able to now start dedicating staff to each of our products. So the most applicable for this call we'll talk about is ggLeap. So moving into 2021, we will have dedicated ggLeap development that will be in its own budget item for us moving forward. Instead of it being, and if any of you have seen our org chart, we have developers that all fill up our org chart. They're not assigned to projects, so we have senior developers, junior developers, and usually it's like what we're working on is the hottest, most important topic at hand, which is probably one of the concerns we'll address in questions for a little bit, is like, we'll explain what we've done this year and what we plan to do different next year. But next year we will have dedicated budgets in and around ggLeap, ggRock, the at-home product. We'll have a dedicated development team, and we have a couple new products that we're going to launch next year. We won't commit to them on this call because, again, I'm not sure what I'm allowed to project in the future as far as being part of this bigger company now, but we will be working on other products next year. We've talked about them on past calls, so you could probably go back and watch some of our old stuff if you want an idea of what we'll be working on next year that are in and around specifically the university market, the LAN Center market, and the dedicated esports arena market that we all live in. The funding is also going to be nice in a publicly traded company for the ability to raise money in and around new projects such as acquisitions. So we've actually earmarked and looked at a couple acquisitions for us that will bring in some technology into our team that's out there today that we like, instead of, build a better mousetrap or find another mousetrap that can work with us. So that'll be part of our strategy next year, which will be great. And again, that's all part of building up the team and building up the offering for all of our customers. And then the best thing is that if you guys know Neveroff and Ross on our roadmap team, road mapping becomes so much easier in this new environment because we'll have the resources to dedicate these groups to the roadmaps that aren't pulled away and pushed or pulled away from other projects within the organization. I don't regret the way we ran the company the past 2 years because we were very focused in 18 on getting ggLeap 1.0 out. We were very focused in 19, and we did a really good job towards the end of the year and the beginning of this year in getting ggLeap's roadmaps and releases going, as well as having some dedicated folks to ggRock. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. So one of the things that I do want to address is that the world we live in today is slowly coming back, as you saw in that graph, and we are slowly coming back to rededicating some of our time into backlogs and feature requests and things around our core products. But one of the things we had to do as a company, as many of you are very aware of in your businesses as well, so we had to focus on the things that brought in income to keep everybody paid. So while we've tried to be as courteous as possible to everybody that's LAN centers, like eBash here that's closed, is that a lot of our folks, either didn't pay license fees, cut their license fees back in half, or we've just, again, like during that period of time, we've extended license fees out for folks during that time that everybody was closed. So in order to keep everybody employed, we were not sitting on piles of money in the bank account that we were like, we had 8 months of runway to just keep building things for that part of our income group that was dormant or hibernating during that period of time. We had to focus on things that we could go out on where there was opportunities to bring in income. And so our team did a great job using the at-home product during the past 6 months, and it's surprisingly become a new piece in our puzzle and a new offering for everybody that's out there to take advantage of. But I say this a lot of times to everybody else, it's not meant to be a standalone product. It's meant to be a product that drives people back to these dedicated play spaces. So to give you an example, we're talking to one of our partners. It's a big major enterprise that has locations that are not very big. And so, like, how do you get 100 people into a tournament in a small LAN center, let's say? Well, the easiest way to do it would be to do an at-home qualifier for a week or two, and then invite the top 10 or the top 5 players or teams to your store so that you could serve a lot more customers than you would have to have seats for in your center. This is probably going to become something that we'll hopefully be able to announce to everybody in the next week or so, as JMac and I have been working on a fun event series for LAN centers over the upcoming weeks as we get to the end of the year, because we feel like we all need something to do. Our players need something to do. There needs to be something for everybody to play for. We're working to finalize some prizes from a couple sponsors, and we hope to announce that soon. And the idea, again, would be lots of players playing in the at-home version, scoring points. It's not serious. It's not, meant to be like, you're the best Fortnite player in the world. It's kind of like what I equate to making the basketball team. Like, if 50 people go out for the team, the first 2 weeks, you run wind sprints to find out who the sissies are that are not going to make the team, who don't have the guts to stick it out. We can use the at-home client to do that. Who's going to dedicate some time to represent your center? And then you invite those people to your center in small groups to challenge the best players from other centers in a tournament. So keep an eye on that. That's some of the ideas that we have of using the at-home process the rest of this year. The other thing that we're, as we look at what this means for you all, is that we're going to have access to bigger deals in the future with this. So what I mean by that is that because we're going to be servicing a larger group of centers around the world and a broader type of group, okay? Part of my concerns a lot of times with this was we work with schools, K through 12 schools. One of the congratulation messages I got yesterday was from the folks in St. Louis that we, Jim and Tim over there, who we helped build out the biggest esports in a high school, dedicated esports space in a high school in the world still that we know of, has 50 dedicated stations in their high school and an esports lounge in the high school. We want to make sure those folks are comfortable that we've got the ability to go out and work with Epic or Activision Blizzard or EA or Riot on events for them while we're working on events for other bigger clients in other environments. So while our numbers continue to grow, that's going to be a benefit for all the parties involved. So whether it be, the ability, this is one that we're fighting today in the world of LAN centers, but IP bans, shadow bans, those sort of things that are existing in the world today, like these bigger deals that we're working on, are going to open up the world for us to be able to build that into our software, and then everybody gets that benefit. So once you're in the software and you're using the software, your IPs will then be whitelisted by these folks so that you don't have to deal with that anymore, whether or not you have one IP or you have 100 IPs. Those are the sort of things that we'll be able to get done next year. There's a lot of great things happening with this merger and acquisition, but I just wanted to kind of address that standpoint as the biggest thing for moving into next year. Now, I'll get into a little bit of questions, JMac, if you want to start posting some in the thing, if you get some that we haven't talked about yet. But I want to start with, like, again, addressing this year's curve, as I showed you in the beginning of the call, and where we focused our effort on this year up until this point, and as we're now refocusing back on some of those markets at LAN centers as they open up again. So Ross and team are excited. We're starting to work on some big rollouts and updates in the next couple months for ggLeap, for ggRock, and then bringing the team back to full speed again on those products in January next year moving forward. ggRock will be coming out of early access in January, so we're working on plans now of how we're going to price that for those folks that have been using it for free up to this point with their ggLeap subscription. We'll have that stuff announced in the next couple of weeks. And then that'll start in January. We're going to be very conscious that, again, I don't think in January we're going to be out of the woods in this virus thing. And, we don't expect everyone to be back to 100% capacity, but, now's a great time also to put in new technology, right? Now's a good time to, like for eBash, we're closed during the week. So it's a great time to roll out updates and fixes within the store where you're not going to disrupt your regular customers. J-Mac, what do you got? Do you have anything that you want to share so far that's come in with the chat room? Anything that you feel like I haven't covered up to this point? We're not meaning for this to be a hour or two long interactive session. We just kind of wanted to address the press release yesterday and try to answer as many questions that we got so far.
I don't see any major questions at this point. Mostly just comments. Issues with receipt printer, like specific, we can't print receipts. We lost League Unlocked. Any chance that might come back? We've heard publisher deals will happen, but haven't seen it yet. I guess maybe the question that comes out of this is kind of like, what are reasons to be excited with using ggLeap beyond just the LAN Center software?
Yeah, I think, well, there's two parts to that. I think that a lot of those questions you just said, and a lot of them we've seen over the past few months as centers are starting to open up again and request features or request bug fixes and again, bug fixes used in certain areas of the world are not the same bugs that are in other areas of the world, So, for example, to us to have a robust point of sale system in Russia, we have to support a certain type of printer that's distributed by the government in Russia that's not applicable to anywhere outside of Russia, right? So like we'll have Russian centers give us feedback on this is the most important thing to get done right now to help my business. And we've got to weigh that against our overall customer base. Not that we're picking and choosing our favorite sons and favorite daughters. It's just a matter of like, if I had 10 kids and 8 of them need something, of course I'm going to do that for my family. If one kid needs something and the other 9 don't, like sometimes you have to make that hard choice of whether or not, you're going to get that done or not, because we don't have an unlimited budget, and we won't in the future. We're very specific. And that's one reason why companies have been so interested in investing in acquiring us over the past 18 months, as we've had quite a few offers, that we do a very, very good job of running our company. We're very efficient with it. We don't overspend in any areas. We don't have massive offices. J-Mac, doesn't have a baby grand piano. He just has that piano behind him. So if you see us with a baby grand piano behind J-Mac, you'll know that we finally have started crossing the bridge into the lifestyles of the rich and famous. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that this is going to probably get missed in all of this, but through that last year, one of the biggest complaints that we fielded all year long, and if you go back and you read through all of the Discord chats, tickets that were open, Facebook feedback, if anybody wants to spend the time doing this, we just did this in the last couple months. But last year we were building out so quickly that we got ahead of ourselves with build outs, and that we caused ourselves some downtime because we're a cloud-based system. I don't know, because again, people love to come in and scream and yell when something's not going well, but like we don't ever get the pat on the back when we've done something right. So I just wanted to kind of put some numbers in front of everybody as far as downtime. Now, I understand it's not been that busy the last 6 months, but this dates back until last year. Our last significant downtime was October the 6th of last year. Okay, so that was over a year ago. All centers experienced some issues. There was about a 4-hour up and down outage. It was a major outage. We call that a major outage in our system. That was kind of that last straw for us of saying, okay, guys, we're halting, focusing on all these features and things, and we're going back to the core of like, we've worked on ggRock, we've done some extra stuff inside of ggLeap. Let's go back to making ggLeap more stable. We had one 14-minute small outage on December 17th last year, and we have not had an outage since then. Now, I'm knocking on wood because in the world of coronavirus, who knows what could happen, because years ago, there was an AWS outage that caused us some problems that was outside of our control then, but we've even put things into place that sort of stuff won't affect us in the future. So, we've really made a press for 5 nines of uptime. Like which is the equivalent, I forget what Chris says it is, like 5 minutes of outages per year, like, and most folks, like, again, you can go look, people will jump into Facebook or Discord and be like, oh, my admin's down, and a refresh or realize their internet provider, their local DNS or something has not routed things correctly. And they're those sort of things. We've not had an outage since October or since December 17th of last year. So we're coming up on a year. I made that clear with our staff last year. It was kind of like if you work in a manufacturing plant and you haven't had an injury, so many days since the last injury. To us, that was an injury. Like this is the most important thing for us was uptime. And so we've dedicated resources into that uptime. And there's been a lot of work on the back end code that doesn't get a lot of sexy press. Like, it doesn't show up in a roadmap. Like, it's that line item that'll be like, this many commits were done, for some back end issues on a change log. And while everybody doesn't, they glance over those things, but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that our system has become truly enterprise grade and rock solid over the past year. And hats off to the team that did that.
Yeah,
our team that did that. Not me. I didn't do any of it, but we have team members that worked on that and continue to work on it.
I got a couple other ones here. So, will we see more features that help us work across centers with all of our locations? And I'm just going to mention them really quickly and kind of answer them. Expanded games in the event system is absolutely a thing that we will do in 2021. On average, it takes us $10,000 to $20,000 for us to implement a new game, and that means 4 weeks of development and 4 weeks of testing. So while we have added what we could, mainly due to enterprise customers that have asked for those games, we haven't been able to add any others. So it's definitely on our list of things to do, and we definitely have games that we're looking at and are brainstorming on to add to the system.
Let me touch that one real quick, J-Mac, because that reminded me of a point that I wanted to make sure we covered. So during that lull in our graph where all the LAN centers were closed and we started working on enterprise clients and we worked on this game system, I wanted to address how we get stats in games. And we actually have 5 ways that we get stats in games right now. And for those enterprise clients that we worked on some things for using at home, we began that journey because we needed to get to market pretty quickly for a few of them. We began that journey using Overwolf as one of those options for us to get stats. Now, it wasn't because we planned on using Overwolf long term. It was because Overwolf at this company asked us for this many games of stats, and we had access to get stats ourselves using a couple methods a certain way. Then we had Overwolf to fill in that chart. Since then, as part of those projects, as we've been building this past summer, I call it the game DLL, but it is a robust system for getting stats out of these games. And internally now we have 4 methods for getting stats. So we can get them from replay files or log files. We can get them from internal APIs. We can get them from public APIs. We can get them from OCR tech that we have now built inside of our client that is able to get things out of screen grab. So we have 4 ways ggCircuit is able to get them. The 5th way is Overwolf. We will be phasing out Overwolf very quickly in the next coming releases of ggLeap and in At Home as we finish building integration for those other games with our 4 methods of ways we get them. So in the future, as early as January, probably across all platforms, but earlier with ggLeap, ggCircuit's software will be able to get stats from these games. And we built that. And you'll get this as we talk about the next thing as far as the challenge system that we built, the episode builder, we call it internally. But we built it as a tool that we can reuse for any kind of game in the future. So like, we don't have to go looking to see if a game has Overwolf, or we don't have to go looking to see if a game has an API. We know right away we have different ways to get the data, and we're going to get the data from as many of those sources as possible so that it'll help validate the data, right? So like if a screen grab and a log file and an API can be used, then we'll use all 3 of those, compare them all together, and that gives us a better validity of that data coming from those games and matches inside of the game. Do you want to talk about the game data? I was going to go on to the challenge builder. Okay.
No.
So the enterprise or the episode builder that we built as well, we just had a lot of requests from both centers and enterprise customers for unique events. And we're like, well, we could just build these events, or we could build an event builder that it becomes a configurable tool that everybody can use. And I'm not sure if folks are aware of how powerful that thing is going to be for us into the next couple of years, which goes along with the ability to have events that go across multiple centers. So the plan is that we would like to make it next year where event companies and centers are able to use internally, our code name is Marketplace. It just describes what it is, but the ability for a center to put out an event and invite other centers to join. And if centers want to join, they can join it, and to hold an event in the event panel inside of the software across multiple centers. And again, that comes from publishers down as well. So we want to be able to have events with publishers and big national or international folks. To give you all an idea of that, most of you don't know, but we have an event called the Battle for the Banner running for colleges. And we plan on doing a Battle for the Banner for centers this fall. Hopefully we'll get that worked out in the next couple of weeks, but it's an event that's powered by Lenovo for all the colleges in our system to play for weekly prizes and to play for a banner for their college at the end of that, and 5 gaming setups for their college at the end of that series. That's all built using that same technology of being able to roll out different types of episodes and events inside of our system. So we want that to be one of the things that we work on next year, is the integration points for everybody to be able to do that.
Another mention was a traditional tournament system. I mean, as far as my perspective on that, and what I tell a lot of people is this: we want to make this stuff as automated as possible. And while tournaments are your standard, event that would go on in a LAN center, that's a lot of work to create a bracket, to manually update that bracket, to manually hope that people are in the right game together, follow up with those stats. Obviously one of our original things that we did have was a tournament system within the old ggCircuit system, and that's archived now. So it'd be a pretty massive undertaking for us to not necessarily rebuild the wheel, but to create a new system that has a traditional bracket system that is automated, which is where we would want to go with it. So as far as priority, that's not a high priority for us, I don't think, in 2021. It may come along with some of the other projects that we're currently negotiating with some enterprise customers, but we just feel like there's so many good platforms out there right now to do a legitimate tournament or a league. Perhaps that may be one of our acquisitions, and perhaps that might be something that we integrate with the current tool. But as far as developing it ourselves, probably won't be something that happens.
It's interesting as you think about tournaments. And again, as an owner of a LAN center right here that I'm sitting in, and as a guy who's ran tournaments for 16 years in our LAN center, there's nothing prohibiting any of us from running tournaments now using all those other tools, right? So like, one of the things that we all have to be real about, like, let's just be honest with this. Like, we could build and integrate Challenge like we did before. We love those guys. It'd be less of a monumental tool to reintegrate with them again than it would be building our own. But to be quite honest, folks, like, having an integrated bracket system is not going to get players to show up in your stores to play in tournaments, right? Like, if you're waiting on software to get people to play in something, then you're waiting on a magic ticket at this point that doesn't exist. Like, players need to be able to know what's going on. You're going to have to promote those events. You're going to have to run those events for the most part anyway, because I always talk about it as herding cats. Like, if you're going to run a bracket, the key with a League of Legends bracket is that you have to get 2 teams with 5 players in each team to sit down and play each other, right? There's no amount of automation that's going to help you herd those cats. If they're in your center, it's a lot easier than if they're at home, but no software tool is going to be able to automate that. It's very interesting, but we just had conversations with some folks that were working on the enterprise level that have come from a history like we have of running big events in the past. And the most miserable times are when you're running a massive event and you're trying to get all of these people to sit down and play their matches on time, because brackets have to advance when somebody finishes a match in the bracket before them. And those weekends, JMac, where we're even just 16 or 24 teams, there's no automation that can make players get all your settings correct, sit down, play the match, somebody pauses the match, somebody complains about ping time. So, It's not software that's going to solve those problems. Those are meant to be the final frontier of esports. I think our goal is, again, those are important and those are those final steps. But if you want 1,000,000 players or 1,000 players or even 100 players to do something, it's not going to be a head-to-head event series, because the other problem with that is that you walk away with 99% of the people as their experience is, I lost, right? They have a bad experience in that event. Like, I joined, but then I lost. So what am I? I'm a loser, right?
Yeah, I'm getting a little behind on the chat, but uh, more ability to brand, etc. I guess what I'll answer with that is we're already deeply developed with ggLeap 2.0, and there are a lot more opportunities for branding, background images, background videos, coming along with that new user interface, which is targeted for release in Q1 of 2021. Um,
That's a big tech change too, isn't it?
yeah, it
I'm going to
goes.
say the wrong thing, but like,
Yeah,
it's not Unity anymore. It's now WPF. I'm
yeah,
throwing
yeah.
that out there. Chris is probably listening and making fun of me, but
WPF
yeah,
instead of Unity. Yeah, so there will be a lot more opportunities for color changes and branding opportunities, partnership opportunities. Now I'm going to lose this. There was a business related. There we go. Adam from California. How much business level integration is going to be required under the purchase? Is ggLeap standalone, or does someone above dictate future plans?
yeah, that's a great question. So we're still making our roadmaps. We're in charge of our roadmaps for all of our projects moving forward. The reason why they acquired us is because we're so self-sufficient and awesome. So, I'll pat the back of our team. Most of you may not have met Brian, who we brought on in January this year, as our director of operations, but we have a very, very well-oiled machine internally as far as organizational structure goes. I will give an example of, like, this year, had we done an investment that was not a full merger acquisition, our plans were hiring in our org tree a chief revenue officer, which we probably will still look at bringing on for next year, and a CFO at a higher level to do things financially for us. We don't need to do a CFO now because the CFO for EEG will handle all of that as part of us being a wholly owned subsidiary of their company, and it needing to be done. Again, I'm learning these terms because we're going through this now, but we're doing a PCAOB audit because it's a publicly traded company. There's certain ways we have to do our books that are required by a public company that aren't required by a private company. So those folks, however, are not going to come in. And that was part of the reason why we love Esports Entertainment Group, is that they're not going to come in and tell us what to do with our product. Like, the other pillars I talked about will need our product, and they will have budgets and they will have resources to pay for our team to do those. That's separate from what we're doing for our products for all of our other customers. They do not want our key customers and our industry to go away. In fact, they want it to thrive. They want it to be one of the pillars of their company that has nothing to do with the other two. They fully expect us to continue to expand with enterprise customers, with universities, K through 12 high schools, and with land centers. Like, there's no change to what we're doing. It's, if anything, it is, they want to help pour gas on the fire in each of those departments to expand those, so that we, in a year or two, are the one-stop shop for everybody for what all we need to run our centers the most efficiently and for the most profit. So it's the same motto as ggCircuit always has. We'll have the same mission, that we're trying to increase the profitability of centers. We're trying to increase the number of screens in our network so that we can then bring opportunities to all of those screens from partners upstream. None of that's changing for ggCircuit. So we had to do that. We had that call with our employees. We let the employees have the same question, like, what's going to change on the top end of this? Our enterprise customers have the same question, like, we've signed contract with ggCircuit LLC, and we've signed these with Zach Johnson. Well, Zach Johnson's not going anywhere, right? Like, my business card will still be Zach Johnson, CEO, ggCircuit. It may add at the bottom in the subtext, an Esports Entertainment Group company, but even to that point, they're not concerned with that needing to be on there or not. That's only if it helps us get through meetings or get into places that maybe couldn't get in by ourselves. And I do think this will tremendously help us, because I don't know if anybody else picks up with this. And again, whether you're feeling on wagering is one way or the other, but like it is changing in the sports world that was so anti wagering before. It is now embraced by a lot of the professional sports leagues, because it is something that's going on anyway behind the scenes in the black market. And it's better to make it legal and to control it than it is to just try to say we don't approve of it and have it exist in the black market where there is no control over it and there's no ties in with those organizations running them. So I forget which one it is, because again, I'll butcher it, but there are owners now of sports teams, of big professional sports teams, that are involved with a lot of the different companies. Like, I know most of you that watch NFL football, you can't get through commercial break without a FanDuel or a DraftKings or an MGM Bets, or, I mean, they're on everything now. Like, they're everywhere. So it is, changed in America, where they're like, you know what, let's try to make it as legal as possible. Let's try to control it. And, it reminds me a little bit, and I hope I don't offend a lot of our conservative friends out there, but it reminds me a little bit of the prohibition. Like, it's one thing to try to ban it. It's another thing to make rules around it and enforce those rules. And I think we're at the point where we're going to make rules around it and enforce those rules. So I know that's the tangent to the original question, but the original question is, yes, we're still in charge of our roadmap. We're still in charge of our products. They don't have any intent. We are the experts in our field. And that's why they bought us, right? Like, they bought our company because they want us to keep doing what we've been doing and just accelerate it and help us accelerate that into the future.
Not seeing.
I know there's going to be lots of questions, perhaps even after this. And so, like, our staff has been gearing up to be able to answer these questions, because the same questions they have are the ones that customers will have on the other side of this.
Sure. I think the only other thing that I wanted to mention, some questions about the event system, a little bit, but I think that one of our next steps definitely will be beyond just the single player journey, is an actual the events system with teams. Will be something that come in 2021. So it was some kind of questions like that, and it was something that we've been asking calls and stuff like that. So that's definitely going to be an option we hope to build in 2021. I won't guarantee it, but we've got our eye on it.
And don't forget about the battle for the banner is the first steps towards that. So there's the individual path, and you're also part of the LAN center in the leaderboard. So your LAN center is made up of the best players from different games. That is part of their score in the battle for the banner. So we definitely are moving that direction. We all know, again, I've been floored by the pandemic pointing out how poorly my community was organized before the doors were shut. Like, it's easy to have a nice gamer community in my center when every Friday night they're here because we're doing a lock-in with pizza. Every Saturday we're doing events in the store for Fortnite contests or League of Legends tournaments, whatever. It's easy to have a community that way. But how really strong was our community? I feel like schools, churches, other clubs and organizations, I think it's not just LAN centers, all of us were floored by how poorly our communities were organized outside of our four walls of our business. Now, that's not to say that this is not what we all want in the future, but we've got to have ways to engage these folks on a continuous basis when they're not in our stores, right? Like, every business now in the world is thinking about that in the future. So there's no wonder why Google Hangouts and Microsoft Teams and Zoom are going through the roof right now, because like people are like, you know what? My company's still got to work from home. So how am I going to keep the people together when they're not walking in the door and punching the time clock anymore? That's what we're all trying to address and really form. We know our communities weren't as strong as we thought they were. And that is the core of LAN centers, honestly. Like, the communities we build, the reason why eBash has been here 16 years is because even today, folks that were here 15, 16 years ago remember eBash. They're coming back with their kids. It is a place that they have a pin in the map and a community that they want their kids to experience after they experienced them when they were teenagers 15 years ago. All right. We're coming up on an hour. I didn't think it would be this long, but I'm glad we got it. Obviously, JMac, you'll be recording that. You've been recording this. You'll get it put onto YouTube. You'll probably take different snippets of it as direct answers to questions. So like if somebody did not get to see this and they have a question of like, what's it going to be next year? What's the plan? We'll have all this available online. We're obviously available for questions. I know a lot of questions came up and we kind of just said, hold off, let us have the town hall. Let us do this first to see if it answers all your questions, so that, you know, bear with us. There's 1,000 locations out there and there's a lot of different customers that we have that work with us. So we can't handle 1,000 questions at one time. We'd rather try to do it this way. And if we didn't answer your question specifically, we're open. Jump into Discord, tag me on it. Like I'm in there, tag me on it. I'll answer it. I may not answer it in 5 seconds. So give me 24 hours, you know, because I'm in and out of there a couple times a day. But feel free to tag me personally on it. I'd be happy to answer it. Cool.
Sounds
J-Mac,
good.
you don't have a closing riff on the piano for us?
Gosh, I can't.
I mean, we did. I don't know if we used it at all. Like,
and that's the end of our show.
MC.
All right. Thanks everyone
you,
for
buddy.
joining us.
Thanks, everybody.